to a special The Alchemist Showcase episode of
Brutal Battle.
Never thought I'd be saying The Alchemist Showcase episode.
Yeah. Well, this also could be a beer mail episode.
Yeah, it is those two things.
Twofold.
Because Kyle Norman he worked his magic again.
Man of the day.
Matt Damon. Kyle Norman's Matt Damon. He worked his magic again, and if people remember when we were at the beach recording, he brought a bunch of enough beers we could do kind of a treehouse showcase episode there, and I never thought I'd do a treehouse showcase episode, and now he's made it possible for The Alchemist, because he has a buddy who goes up that way enough, and so he actually kind of has a somewhat steady stream of The Alchemist coming in. So he saved these beers up. We have 4. He actually gave us 6 total beers. Oh, cat's leaving.
There we go.
He actually gave us 6 total beers, but we're only doing 4 in this because the other 2 beers we're not putting in are both Heady Toppers. And the thing is, we've had Heady Topper on the show a few times. So if you really want to know our thoughts on Heady Topper, just type Heady Topper into the search function on the website, brutalbattle.com, and it will come up with all the episodes in which we have tried Heady Topper. And we're going to jump into a beer immediately because Rebecca always needs it. And this is also a beer we've had on the podcast before, and it is their Focal Banger, which is their straight-up IPA. And like I've said, we've had it on the podcast before. We like this beer. But the 3 beers we're having after this one throughout the episode, we have never had any of those 3.
No.
So pretty excited. But they're all hoppy.
Are they part of the same lineup, or... because the can art is very different.
Yeah, it's similar and different at the same time. It has like these hop silhouettes, but in different colors. But all right, well, first I'm going to open this Focal Banger 7% alcohol IPA. Let's go for it. 16-ounce can. These are all 16-ounce cans. I was going to say that's the only way they do their beers, but that's not true. They actually have a few things in bottles.
Oh, okay. I mean, most places are doing 16-ounce cans. I mean, I feel like that's...
Well, and what's funny about it is not all that long ago, it was almost impossible to sell 16-ounce cans.
Well, not that long ago, we weren't even seeing cans in general. Like,
right. Oh, yeah.
Within our lifetime.
Like, you go back far enough, there were no cans.
So, I'm sorry. Was this... Did you tell me the ABV already? 7.
Yeah.
Okay.
What does it look like? It looks like a non-filtered IPA. It looks kind of hazy. It looks pretty orange. A little yellow to the color, but pretty orange.
Smells good.
Ooh, yeah. There's a slight dank note in there.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of a resin touch to it.
That's
dank.
exactly what I was going to say.
What else do you get?
No, I was just going to say resin. Because, I mean, at first you get hit with, like, I don't know, like a tangerine, citrus, sweetness, and then boom, I was going to say resin on the back end.
Yeah, definitely. Because it's got kind of like this, it's a little thick. It's a little like a slight sweetness. Smells a little bit thick. Yeah.
But not a lot, but it's kind of there.
It smells rich, though, too.
I like it. It does. It smells good. It smells really complex.
But it also smells kind of soft. Like, the citrus smells well-rounded. Like, it's not just trying to kill you. I don't smell a whole lot of bitterness on there. I'm hoping there's a little more in the actual flavor. But
so I just took a sip. There is a decent bitterness on the end, which I like because it's in check. Yeah. It's not... I don't like a ton of bitterness, but I like a little bitterness just to kind of balance it out. And
definitely.
This is really hitting the spot.
Ooh, yeah, there's like a citrus blast almost immediately that you're getting. I'm getting that resiny aspect to it, and it has more of a body to it than I remember Focal Banger having, which I guess shouldn't be that big of a surprise because it's at 7%. Not like that's super high, but at 7%, like it can have more of a body to it.
It's really good.
Yeah. There's a slight pine note in there. Like we said, resiny. There's a little bit of that dankness. Plenty of citrus, like the tangerine you were talking about. I would say also, as you get with a lot of these beers, orange playing around in there.
It's really good.
There's a solid bitterness. I really like that solid bitterness in the back. I wonder what I said about this beer before. Well, you can find the podcast episode.
I guess I can.
Easy enough. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit before we get to the next beer. So, 2003 is when the Alchemist started brewing beers, and they just had like this little brew pub in Waterbury, Vermont at that time. That little brew pub actually doesn't exist anymore because of Hurricane Irene had come through and just demolished everything. And there was this interesting story I was reading in an article where John Kimmich, it's family owned. It's owned by John and Jen Kimmich. They run the brewery. And John had gone in after Irene hit, and it was like the water was like almost up to his waist.
Jeez. Ugh.
Yeah, and he kind of knew like that's the end for that. And so he like went and poured himself a beer from the tap and just kind of like looked around and like cheersed himself and was like, you know, kind of to the end, at least of this building. But obviously that didn't kill the brewery because they're still around now. So originally started in 2003, but there are some other year markers that I'll talk about. So John handles the beer aspect of things. He's the head brewer. He's the beer guy. Now Jen handles all the business stuff. So they really come together and make this a family thing.
Cool.
They have 2 locations at the moment. They do have one in Waterbury, Vermont still, and then they also have one in Stowe, Vermont. Now, the one in, actually, I forget which one's which, but I have it written down, and I'll get there when I get to that part of what I have written down. But, so obviously, as a brewery, we all know this, the Alchemist has specialized in unfiltered IPAs, or New England-style IPAs, hazy IPAs, however you want to put it.
So those are really used interchangeably.
Hazy and New England style?
Yeah.
They are now.
Okay.
When these beers first came out, it was New England IPA or New England style IPA. It has since changed to hazy. Now, I would kind of argue that they are very different things. They're used interchangeably, but they are very different things because when it started out and it was just New England style, it was being done by just a few people. And, you know, John Kimmich being the one mainly who popularized it. And then I feel like after that, it's become kind of bastardized in a way because everyone's trying their hand at it, and there are a lot of people who really suck at it. And then that's when hazy started being used a lot. So in my mind, I keep them pretty separated. And I'm like, the New England style is when it was in its infancy and it was good. The hazy style is when everyone and their brother's trying to do it, and there's a lot of crap out there.
Okay.
So that's how I look at it. But, so as we all know, that's what they specialize in. Like, anyone who's ever heard of The Alchemist knows The Alchemist does hazy. So, originally, they opened in Waterbury. Yeah, I was talking about that. It was a brew pub. 60 seats. It was only a 60-seat brew pub. And after 8 years...
That's still a decent size, though.
Yeah. Yeah, for 2003, I would say. So after 8 years, they ended up opening a solely production brewery in Waterbury because there was such a high demand for
Heady Topper.
Yes, and I'll talk about Heady Topper specifically a little bit because that's what this brewery was built on.
Yeah, and I remember when we first had Heady Topper, do we have Focal Banger at the same time?
No, actually, the first time we had Heady Topper, we had it side by side with Pliny the Elder.
Oh, okay.
And at that time, those were very hard to get beers.
I mean, they still are.
Yeah, I mean...
Especially where we live.
They're still hard to get, but they're not as hard to get as they were. I'll just put it that way. So
yeah. Because I think I remember liking Focal Banger better.
Right. So there are a lot of beers that they distribute that they make, but they're only available at their brewery where people can go and do tours and stuff. That's the one in Stowe, Vermont. Now, Focal Banger and Heady Topper are distributed statewide in Vermont, but that's it as far as their distribution. Those are the two that are statewide distributed. I don't think they distribute any others. I think the rest of them you actually have to go to their Stowe brewery to their retail portion and purchase all the other stuff.
Cool.
But Heady Topper and Focal Banger, pretty available if you're in Vermont, from what I understand. So let's move to our next beer. So this one is called Alena, or Alena, A-L-E-N-A. It's an American IPA, and this is 7.7% alcohol. And actually, on Focal Banger, let me see if it said anything about like specific hops. Okay, so the Focal Banger, it said, is brewed using Citra and Mosaic hops and their favorite British malts. So just so we know. Now, Elena says it's showcases Summit and Columbus hops, just so people know. So let's get into this. I'm excited because here we're going into new territory for us. This is our first new Alchemist beer in I don't know how long.
In a very long time.
Would you like some?
Yes, please. Well, it's not as hazy.
I have a feeling it's going to look relative. Ooh, wow.
No, it's not hazy at all.
Well, there's a slight haze to it, but that could be from being cold. But yeah, I can see through this, which is a little bit surprising and probably would be surprising to people who really know The Alchemist. Ooh.
And
I don't smell nearly as much. The smell seems super dialed back from what Focal Banger was.
I have to smell my clothes because I'm also smelling food.
Yeah, we're making sweet potato fries at the same time. Okay, I get some. It is just really low level nose.
Yeah.
It smells light. It smells kind of crisp, to be honest.
I mean, it smells light. It smells clean. It smells a little weedy, and it smells a little citrusy.
I wouldn't necessarily say wheat, but like, I do get a little bit of a grain, like the malty grain coming through. And there is a citrus, but it's like very, very light and subtle. And it smells like orange, I guess. And there's a slight sweetness on the end of each sniff. But there's not a whole lot on the nose, really. This is, yeah. Oh.
Kind of tastes like a creamsicle.
Okay. There's one thing that I got a taste of right off the bat, and I need another sip just to see if that's still there. Yeah. I get a little grape. A little grapey to you?
No.
I know there's some hops that do that. I don't know if Summit or I know Columbus is not one that does the grapey, but to me it tastes like slightly grapey.
See, this has way more of a bitterness.
Yeah, and actually I like that. I'm kind of liking this more than the Focal Banger for that reason.
I don't. It's too much of a bitterness for me. Not enough flavor.
It's more dialed back, like nose-wise, and it's not like a punch of citrus like the Focal Banger was, but there's a decent pine in there mixed with a nice kind of orange. It's good. It's kind of vibrant in a way. Like the mouthfeel and the finish. It's vibrant? Like kind of light and crisp and vibrant in that sense, but it's thick, it's thicker at the same time. So it's kind of weird that like it's coming off kind of light and crisp, but being thicker at the same time.
Okay,
it's weird, but
I can agree with that. I wouldn't say vibrant. Vibrant is not a word I would use to describe this.
There is a decent bitterness kick at the end.
Yeah, pour me.
I like that.
Pour me a splash more.
Yeah, I'm liking this.
It's a little too bitter for me.
So as I keep going with it, it's the orange is increasing and it's becoming like a candied orange. It's almost starting to taste like a little bit sweet and a little bit like a hop, like a citrusy hop candy.
Do you get the perception, because I said creamsicle, do you get like that vanilla at all, or was that just me?
I don't see like a vanilla, but I think the orange flavor could get me kind of there.
Well, could maybe the sweetness from the orange.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a bad beer at all. I like it a lot.
I quite like it.
I know you like it more. You like it more than I do.
I like it more than the Focal Banger, to be honest. I like the flavor of this. This is nice. I love that kind of punch at the end of the bitterness. Like it's something you're not getting a ton with IPAs anymore. And it's nice. I like it. Okay, so moving on the information. I'm going to give you some water. You'll have to wait till we move to our next one. Oh yeah. And it definitely like gets thicker feeling on the mouthfeel as you go on. So anyway, with the Waterbury location, they opened that second location, the one for production, in 2011. and it was a 15-barrel brewery and canning line at the time, dedicated to only Heady Topper.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Sorry, drink some water. Heady Topper only, because it was so popular, like we talked about. And when it was open, it was not open to the public. And we'll kind of talk about why a little bit later with the information. So, and like I said, Hurricane Irene had come in and destroyed their pub and brewery 2 days before they opened the production brewery. So it's kind of good that if that was going to happen to their brew pub, that they had already been working on this production brewery and had it up and working when Irene hit. Because can you imagine what would have happened if they just got nailed and they just didn't have the ability to make beer at all?
That would really... People would be missing their Heady Toppers.
Well, I mean, the company would have been in a lot more trouble because, you know, they took a huge hit with what happened with Irene, but it would have been even bigger if they just couldn't make beer because then they couldn't make any money. So, timing, like, it was a terrible, unfortunate thing, but timing was good at the same time. So, in 2016, they then opened a brewery in Stowe, Vermont, and it's a 16,000 square foot facility. This one was the one that was supposed to be open to serve the community and also large numbers of beer tourists. They ended up opening that specific location in a different location because...
Oh, it draws that much?
Right. It was drawing in so many beer tourists that they couldn't handle that amount with where they were. So, yeah.
It's crazy.
And then that same facility in Stowe, they brew the rest of the beer there and provide a spot for tours, tasting, sales, merchandise, like all that stuff. So that's like the place that people are going to go to. Like that's where all their stuff's going to be. But then in Waterbury, meanwhile, they're just pumping out that Heady. But Focal Banger is done in Stowe and everything else. And then Heady Topper is just solely done in Waterbury. But you can still buy Heady Topper at the Stowe location as well. Yeah. And like I said, like it's distributed throughout the state, so you can get it other places as well. So, let's go ahead. This is gonna seem a little weird, but I took this from like a few different articles, so the order might seem a little odd. But for the next portion, I'm gonna kind of go backwards and talk about kind of John Kimmich and how he got going.
Oh, really? Okay.
With the brewery and everything. But let's get Rebecca another beer. You ready?
Just me another beer, not you?
No, I'm drinking it too.
This is called Crusher.
Yeah, this one is Crusher. This is an American double IPA. It is 8% alcohol. Well, let me see if it calls anything out special about this one. No, it doesn't say anything special about it, like calling out hops or anything, but let's go.
Okay.
Ooh. It's foaming a little bit. It'll be interesting to see what the body to this one's like compared to the first two, since it's going up in alcohol.
Yeah.
So let's go.
It looks like Elena.
Oh. Yeah, it actually looks a little bit like it's got a little bit more of a haze to it than the Elena did, but not much. Like, yeah, I can't fully see through it. It's not totally clear, but yeah, it's just a little bit hazy. This one also smells a little low.
Yeah.
Yeah, smell your arm.
My arm. Yeah, but I'm getting a lot of the resin dankness that we got from before. I'm not getting as much citrus at all.
I get some, but it is more of like a sweet, like a very sweet citrus. Like I've said before, that kind of like dehydrated orange. It's more on the sugary side.
That sugary, syrupy side, yeah.
Yeah. It definitely...
I'd like to smell them side by side because I feel like they have similar noses.
This and the Elena?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The Elena, I think, had a little bit more citrus. This has less citrus.
Yes, I would say so.
Okay, I'm going in.
Yep. I'm with you. Oh, the mouthfeel stepped up on this one even more. That's very serious on the tongue.
Ooh.
So, There's a decent bitterness to this one, but I feel like it doesn't present as aggressively as Elena did with the bitterness. Now, it definitely tastes more viscous than the Elena and the Focal Banger, certainly. I like it, though. Like, I like that kind of, like, juicy, or that, like
it's
more
like,
serious, the more serious mouthfeel. I kind of feel like you almost have to chew it a tad, which I like. I'm
definitely getting way more grape in this one.
Yeah. I was going to say, I definitely get that grapiness that I was getting in Elena. It is more pronounced.
I didn't really perceive it in Elena, and I don't even know if I would be able to pick it out. But because you planted that seed, I definitely am like, oh, yeah.
And that, like, dehydrated orange. Like I was saying on the nose.
I mean,
I like
these
this.
are all really, really good beers.
I really like this.
It's hard, and obviously we pick apart everything, and it's going to be hard to rank these because they're all quite good. It's going to be like, what do you like just a hair bit more? Because they're all really good.
I'm liking the Crusher more than the Elena right now because it's kind of like it's just the next step over the Elena.
Oh, really?
Like, that's how I feel. It's a little more viscous. It's a bit more flavor. It's a bit more dark. But I appreciate the fact that this is kind of like Elena, but it's a little more syrupy, a little more sweet, a little more citrus, a little more grapey, a little more citrusy.
And for me, I like the Elena. I like the Focal Banger more. But for me, it kind of dialed up all the things I didn't love about the beer.
Really?
Yeah.
So
I don't like the grape flavor.
Okay, I can get that. But I do feel like there's one thing. Let me see if you agree with this. I feel like the increased body and the more sweetness to it balances the bitterness better.
Yes, agreed. It's less bitter, and I do really like the body. Mm-hmm. I agree. I agrees with you there.
I like that. All right, so now let's talk about, like I said, we're going to go back a little bit. Let's talk about how John Kimmich got to starting Heady Topper. Yeah, just about starting Heady Topper. That's all was known for a while. Starting the Alchemist with his wife. How did we get there? John actually came from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
And he ended up meeting his wife eventually in Vermont Pub and Brewery in Burlington, Vermont in 1995. So a decent amount before they ended up opening the thing. He graduated from Penn State in Pennsylvania and worked his way up to head brewer once he got to Vermont Pub and Brewery, and then decided after meeting Jen and them getting married, hey, let's start a brewery together. And then that's where their first location was in 2003. And actually, real quick, this reminds me, because I didn't say in the beginning of this, I don't know when I'm putting this episode out, but if it hasn't been said on a prior episode, we got these beers from Kyle Norman because we met up with he and Kelly Norman in Pittsburgh.
Right.
And we went and did like a beer excursion. So there will be an episode for that if there wasn't already. And I just thought it was funny when I was doing my research that, John Kimmich is from Pittsburgh. And we just grabbed these from Kyle in Pittsburgh, and we were drinking in Pittsburgh, which was awesome. So anyway, back to the information. So Heady Topper was initially only brewed occasionally until the popularity ended up getting out of control, basically. It was just once a year for a little bit, and then it became twice a year, and then it was 3 times a year. And it just kept going up and up and up as demand did, and then it just got crazy. And then they ended up having a problem where they had so many people coming to their initial location in Waterbury, Vermont, that the neighbors started complaining about traffic. The state started complaining about traffic.
Ooh.
And then they had no choice but to kind of shut down the beer sales from there.
Shut it down.
And then that's when they started shifting over to doing the brewing with the production brewery and then just distributing it out. Mm. And then eventually they did the Stowe location, which, as I said, then people can actually go there because it's got more parking. It's, not as much of an issue. So in the cannery's first year, the one just for Heady Topper and Waterbury, Heady Topper production went from 400 barrels to 1,500 barrels then to 9,000 barrels.
Jeez.
Which gives you a great idea of how much of this beer they were just turning out and selling. They still had to, they ended up having to limit purchases per person because they were selling so much of the beer and they didn't want, just a few people to end up buying everything out, which is crazy. And then, so that's kind of almost it. The only other thing that I wanted to say is this is nice, that they employ a wellness instructor.
What?
For their employees. And I found an article, but it was from a few years ago, saying that they employ 48 people. It may be more at this point. So they have a wellness instructor for them that they employ. But in addition, their employees get full health insurance, retirement plans, sick days, paid vacation days, and subsidized childcare.
Wow.
Which is very nice. And every company should do this stuff.
It's a lot, especially, they probably have more employees than that, but still.
Yeah. All right, so I will pour the final beer, and then I'll go over beers from them. And I wrote all the beers down, but I'm not going to go
very long one.
Yeah, I'm not going to go over all of them. I'm just going to throw out the ones that are not hoppy.
Okay, yeah.
Because we know that they do a lot of hoppy beers, so I'll just read the ones that are not hoppy to see if maybe I shock anyone and be like, oh, they make this, and it's not hoppy.
I see milk stout.
Yeah, I know that would probably pique your interest.
So I'm like,
All right, so let's drink another beer, though. This is the fourth and final beer.
Fourth and final.
It is an American double IPA, also 8%, like the Crusher.
It's an IPA?
It's called Ouroboros. And if there's anything interesting, so this is an American double IPA brewed with Curacao orange peel and fresh orange zest.
Okay, so this is the only one that was specifically brewed with something.
Yes.
Okay. Let's see if we get it.
Other than the usual.
Right, yeah.
So I figured this would be an interesting one to have last for that reason. Plus, it's one of two that's the highest ABV. So
I think it's the clearest and the lightest.
Oh, yeah. Oh, wow, yeah. Nice and orange looking. Yeah, very clear. Definitely the clearest.
I feel like it's more yellow. Yellow-orange.
Sure.
This smells good.
Yeah. It might just be because I know it, but I smell that orange zest. Like,
I don't know if I smell orange zest. I smell orange.
Yeah. Yeah, it's actually really strong orange. And it's kind of like, it is that thing where like, when you zest an orange.
Yeah.
And you just get like the oils just like flying out.
Yes.
It smells like that, basically.
Yeah.
And then there's a nice bitterness in the nose that makes you think
smells really
orange zest.
Good.
This smells really nice.
I'm like salivating smelling it. And it's not the most aromatic beer I've ever smelled, but for some reason it is very enticing to me.
Yeah. Definitely.
It's just a really nice orange flavor, and it's not over the top.
I think for me, I think it's because the orange smell is so sharp.
Yeah.
And I really dig that.
And it's not overly, it's kind of one note citrus, the orange. It's not, I'm not perceiving any sweetness.
Right. Well, there is some sweetness in the flavor though, but wow, at 8%, it's a lot lighter than I would think.
I like this.
Yeah, it's very orange driven. You get that flavor that's kind of like dehydrated orange, but then you also get that bright kind of freshly zested orange. And then a bitterness there that tastes like orange peel, but to be honest, it tastes less bitter than the Crusher and the Elena.
I would say the bitterness is within check, which I appreciate. It's there.
This is good.
I know it's really good.
I like this a lot.
I do too.
It's just like, that orange is just so bright. It's so just like, pow. It's just like, do you love orange? You're going to love this. But it's not like that Haze Bro orange garbage.
But it's not, right. It's not like sugary sweetness orange.
I mean, there is a sweetness, but it's not crazy.
Well, right.
I feel like the bitterness, the bright orange flavor balances the sweetness out really, really well. That's a nice beer. Quite like that. All right, so let me talk about some beers that aren't hoppy, because all we did was taste hoppy. So sorry about that. That's what we had, but thank you once again, Kyle Norman.
Kyle Norman was the man.
This was awesome. So, okay. So, Honey Bunch a honey ale that they make.
Are you holding that away from you?
I'm doing that just so I can still...
Oh, okay. I was like, oh my gosh, do you need reading glasses
No,
already?
I don't. I'm doing it so that I can still talk towards the microphone, but see it.
I was like, oh my gosh.
Because I don't want to put it right in front of my face.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So I worried for a second. I was like, oh my God, you're getting old.
I'm getting up there. We all are.
I know. Oh.
Yeah. So Honey Bunch, a honey ale, Knuckle Dragger, which is a Belgian-inspired milk stout.
Belgian-inspired milk stout. I probably wouldn't like it.
Those are iffy with me. Yeah. Donovan's Reg, which is an Irish-style ale.
Oh, interesting.
Beelzebub, which is an imperial stout, which we've had on the podcast many years ago, and it was mind-blowing, to be honest. You should go back and listen to that. Dark, which is a Schwarzbier. Double Twubble, it is spelled with a W, which is a Belgian-style double. Farmer's Daughter, which is a Belgian-style Saison. El Jefe, which is a dark IPA. That is hoppy, but not a lot of people are doing dark IPAs or black IPAs. Yeah. Okay. Cascadian ales. Kenny's Kolsch, which is a Kolsch, which we've had that. We had on the podcast. And where did we get it from? Kyle Norman.
Oh, it was a good Kolsch. I just drink beers. I don't remember where they came from.
A beer called Light, which is a Pilsner. I would like to try that. Been loving Pilses lately. One called Lightweight, which is a American-style blonde ale. One called Luscious, which is a British-style imperial stout, which was also on the podcast, and that was the one where it was the, I think it was a stout tournament that I had at Kyle Norman's house. Mm-hmm. I think he put the Luscious in, and there's a barrel-aged version of that, by the way.
Sounds good.
Pappy's Porter, which is just a porter.
Oh, who doesn't want to drink a beer with the name Pappy in it?
Well, then you might like this next one even more. Pappy's Secret Stash, which is a vanilla milk porter.
Pappy, I need your secret stash.
You need to get into Pappy's little stash.
Yeah, that sounds so dirty.
What the hell are you hoarding in there, Pappy? Let me in. One called Petite Mutant, which is an American sour ale with cherries. Did you know the Alchemist does sours?
Yeah, interesting.
Sturk Wit, which is a Belgian-style double wit beer. Wild Child, which is a lambic sour ale, and then they have different versions of that. One that is peach and one that is strawberry.
Interesting.
Yeah, okay. Sound great.
That could be good.
One called Winter Warmer, which is, they just say Belgian-inspired ale. Zomer Beer, which is a summer saison. And the last one, Squidgy Black, which is a barrel-aged imperial stout. So now you know the Alchemist does more than hoppy.
Which is good to know, because I feel like that's all you hear about.
Well, all you hear about is heady topper. Sometimes you hear about focal banger. Yeah. Sometimes. And a lot of that has to do with the availability, like we talked about. But, yeah. So this has been a lot of fun. Like I said, thank you, Kyle Norman. Because without you, we wouldn't do this.
This wouldn't happen.
So now's the ranking time. Now's the hard stuff.
Okay.
And I know exactly how it's going to go for me.
Me too.
People can probably guess because I've been pretty vocal throughout this.
Okay.
So you can go ahead.
Okay. My number 1 is Focal Banger.
Okay.
My number 2 is the beer I can't...
The Ouroboros?
Yeah, the one I can't see or pronounce.
Yeah.
Ouroboros.
The one we're drinking now.
My number 3 is the Elena, and my number 4 is the Crusher.
Okay. So mine's very different. My number 4 is Focal Banger.
What?
Yep. My number 3 is Elena. My number 2 is Crusher. And my number 1 is the Ouroboros.
So we both really like the Ouroboros.
Yeah.
But then the rest of them are like really all out of whack.
But they're all really good.
I know.
I would drink any of these any day, is my point.
Yeah, agreed.
It's just the nature of what we do on the show.
I will say, I feel like Focal Banger, Elena, and Ouroboros are really close for me. Crusher is just okay because that grapiness coming through.
I quite like that.
Was a little off-putting for me. I didn't like that.
Yeah.
Well, let's see. Different strokes for different folks.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But if you said to me, hey, you can have a 4-pack in any of these, I'm going with the Ouroboros.
Oh, yeah.
For sure. Especially because...
I mean, I guess I would
do Focal Banger, probably.
I probably do Focal Banger, but then I'm like, it's more available. I don't really care. I'd take anything because we can't get this shit around us.
Yeah, quite true. Yep. Well, awesome. Hopefully people enjoyed this episode. If you have ideas for breweries that you want to hear showcases for, let me know. Also, just know that when we're recording this, we are recording this just days after we got the beers from Kyle. And Kyle informed me that these beers stayed cold all the way from the brewery to me.
Yep.
And then we had them...
We did not have them cold.
We didn't know we were getting them, so we didn't have anything to keep them cold. So they were not cold. Well, we took them right out of our Airbnb fridge, and they sat in the car for about 5 hours, maybe.
And it was... So they were still cold when we brought them home, but not... Yeah.
So these have been well preserved, is my point. And that's why we did the episode so quick. Because we wanted to make sure they're as fresh as possible. We will be doing other showcase episodes, though. But if you have ideas, just email us if there are any that you want us to do. brutalbattlepodcast@gmail.com. Thanks, everyone, especially Kyle Norman. And until next time,
keep it brutal.